नमस्कार, सलाम, याली मदद, सत श्री अकाल, हेलो टू कैलगरी। आप सबका स्वागत है हमारे प्रोग्राम कैलगरी फोकस पे। मैं आपका होस्ट, आपका दोस्त अमृत ब्रार आप सबका स्वागत करता हूं और आशा करता हूं कि आप सब स्वस्थ होंगे, मस्त होंगे और व्यस्त होंगे। हमारे पूरी टीम की तरफ से आपके लिए और आपके परिवार के लिए यही शुभकामनाएं। कैलगरी के अंदर एक बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा जो पार्किंग है वो एक बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट फैक्टर है, बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट हिस्सा है जो कि कैलगरी सिटी को रन करता है। कैलगरी पार्किंग अथॉरिटी उस पार्किंग के काफ़ी बड़े हिस्से को रन करती हैं और ऑन स्ट्रीट पार्किंग और जो पार्किंग परमिट्स हैं जहाँ जहाँ वो चाहिए उसको इशू किया जाता है। पार्क प्लस एक बहुत बड़ा सिस्टम जो कि कैलगरी पार्किंग अथॉरिटी टेक केयर करती है। आज हमारे साथ कैलगरी पार्किंग अथॉरिटी से उनके जो इंटरिम जीएम हैं वो जुड़े हैं और एक बहुत बड़ा मेजर चेंज आने वाला है कैलगरी पार्किंग अथॉरिटी में। उस चेंज के बारे में बात करेंगे, प्लस पार्किंग परमिट्स जो कि एक बहुत अहम हिस्सा है वो चेंज होने जा रहा है, उसके अंदर कुछ तब्दीली आने वाली है, उसके बारे में हम लोग बात करेंगे। तो आइए मिलकर स्वागत करते हैं हमारे अपने मिस्टर क्रिस का। सर, वेलकम टू द शो।
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sir, first of all, on behalf of my team, I would like to thank you that you gave us your time, and your valuable information will be given to a lot of people, to our audience, and they will definitely get benefit from that. Sir, before we start the real subject, if you can tell us a little bit about like what is CPA and how it helps the city, please.
Yeah, thank you. So CPA, or Calgary Parking Authority, is really the city's public provider of parking, and we do many different things for the community. It's providing off-street parking through parkades in the downtown, surface parking in the surrounding areas. We also manage the on-street parking, so the paid parking, where we have paid parking, and also permit programs like the residential parking permit program. And then, of course, obviously, we offer enforcement services when they're needed for parking and vehicles.
That's amazing, sir. Is Calgary Parking Authority is actually City of Calgary?
Yeah, Calgary Parking Authority always has been part of the City of Calgary, particularly from a legal perspective, but it's operated separately. So as part of a review that was conducted in July of 2021, Council decided that the operations of the Calgary Parking Authority should be integrated directly into city operations.
So that change is coming soon, right?
That's correct, yeah. Customers shouldn't notice much change, but organizationally we're working towards implementing that change for the end of this year.
So now the people working with CPA can proudly say we are part of city, right?
Yes, certainly can.
It brings a different feeling, sir. You know, it brings a kind of a different way of presenting yourself, right? Like you are contributing more now being part of city. You were contributing before also, but now it will be part of a very huge organization and a part of city which runs Calgary. So it brings a different feeling, sir.
Definitely, yeah. I think CPA really brings a lot of expertise to the table, and it's becoming part of something bigger with the city of Calgary.
That's amazing, sir. Now, as you were explaining how Calgary Parking Authority helps people, the major part which CPA does is Park Plus, which is the paid parking on street, and the CPA has parkades where Park Plus is there. Another portion which CPA does is monthly parking, like people can buy monthly parking and then can park in these lots. The third major factor or the service comes is residential parking permits. Now these permits are more in need in areas like downtown or Bridgeland, Somerville, Somerset, where the parking is more congested and people are more worried about parking their own cars on the street so that the other people don't park there, right? Now there is a major change coming. Before, what I know, that parking permits were free. you could take up to 2 car permits as long as the cars are registered at that address, and then you can buy 3rd, 4th, 5th, as many cars you have. And now there is a major change coming. Can you explain what major change is coming so that people know about it, sir?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some major changes coming with respect to residential street parking permits. For large buildings that are over 20 units in size or 4 stories tall, they will no longer be able to access those free permits beginning in 2023. What they will have access to is what we're calling a market permit, and that'll let them purchase a monthly pass on street, but it is priced similarly to some of the off-street parking in the area. And the reason we're making that change is really to encourage people to first choose that off-street parking location that they have access to for their vehicles. And then if they have used that option and they're limited in their alternate options for vehicles, they could then purchase this market permit. There are some other changes for smaller buildings. Single-family homes will now have a limit of 3 permits per household and 2 visitor permit. And medium-sized multi-family buildings will move to 1 select permit, which they can use either for a resident or a visitor.
That's great, sir. So what I can read from here is that large multi-residential building, that is the building type, and the definition is 4 stories or more in height or with more than 20 dwelling units. Permit eligibility will be 1 market permit whenever it's available. Pre-1945 large multi-residential buildings, the definition is 4 stories or more in height or with more than 20 dwelling units and built before 1945. They are called heritage buildings. They again 1 select permit available in 2023. Small multi-residential building less than 4 stories in height or has 20 or fewer dwelling units, 1 select permit available 2023. It will be available. Then ground oriented building, that's again a building type, detached, semi-detached and duplex houses, townhouses, row houses and some low profile multi-residential buildings. And permit eligibility maximum 3 residential parking permits and 2 visitor permits. एक बहुत बड़ा चेंज, एक बहुत बड़ा इससे हम कह सकते हैं कि पार्किंग की जो समस्या है काफ़ी हद तक बेटर होगी, बिकॉज अभी काफ़ी कुछ उलझा हुआ है और उस उलझन के बारे में भी हम मिस्टर क्रिस से बात करेंगे. बट मैं आपको ये बताना चाहूँगा, हमारे नॉर्थ ईस्ट एरिया में देयर आर 2 एरियाज़, मार्टिनडेल एंड सैडल रिज, जहाँ पे ये पार्किंग परमिट्स अभी लोग यूज़ कर रहे हैं. तो उनके लिए बहुत बड़ी खबर है. तो प्लीज़ आप हमसे जुड़े रहें और कैलगरी पार्किंग अथॉरिटी से जुड़े रहें, सिटी ऑफ कैलगरी से जुड़े रहें, ताकि सही टाइम पे आपको इन्फॉर्मेशन मिलती रहे. मिस्टर क्रिस, before we go for a break, can you please let us know why this change was necessary? Why it has to be changed at this time now?
Really, the reason it's a good time to do this change is just we've got a lot of demands, especially with the pandemic, in terms of street space use in busy areas. Lots of deliveries occurring. We got food delivery, parcel delivery, visitors to these areas, as well as the residents. And we feel this will really help accommodate all the various parking demand by having those residents choose those off-street parking spaces as their primary location. So that's really what's pressed us into making these changes at this time.
That's amazing. एक छोटा सा ब्रेक लेते हैं और ब्रेक के बाद दोबारा आपसे जुड़ते हैं. आप देख रहे हैं प्रोग्राम कैलगरी फोकस ओनली ऑन पंजाबी नेशनल टेलीविजन पर. मिलते हैं एक छोटे से ब्रेक के बाद. वेलकम बैक. एक बार फिर से स्वागत हमारे प्रोग्राम कैलगरी फोकस पे. आप देख रहे हैं पंजाबी नेशनल टेलीविजन. हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं मिस्टर क्रिस, जो कि इंटरिम जीएम हैं कैलगरी पार्किंग अथॉरिटी के और सिटी ऑफ कैलगरी से हमारे पास आज आए हैं एक बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन देने के लिए. मिस्टर क्रिस, they will be, as I was telling our viewers over here, that there are 2 areas right now, Martindale and Saddle Ridge, which are under this parking permit system. But the way the city is growing and the way the northeast is growing, I'm talking about Skyview and Redstone, Cornerstone, so there are houses built without any limit, right? There are crazy houses coming up there. Now, as the houses are coming, the people will be there, and more cars will be there. And I believe more and more people will be going for this system in that area, which is good news and a bad news. Because good news is that at least the parking system will be placed and people will have a proper way to park their vehicles. Because now, if you've seen, you get a number of calls that somebody has parked in front of my house and somebody has blocking my driveway. So the enforcement is busy in solving those things, right? But at least with this, there will be a number of people in those areas coming to you. So what kind of advice you will give, that what are the parameters or how the residential parking permits work, so that they know that if they want, they can contact us?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. So if you feel there's a parking congestion issue in your area, you can contact the city and request a review for a residential parking permit zone, and then also the restrictions on your street. So what the city will do is we'll collect data on that street to determine if the level of parking congestion is significant enough that we need to bring in some restrictions for residential parking. And those can vary. It may be a 2-hour time limit for visitors that would allow residents to stay longer, or in some cases it would only allow residents to park there and visitors would need a permit. Once that data has been measured and there's an indication of a parking congestion problem, then there'll be a petition process for yourself and your neighbors, and up to 80% of the street need to agree to have that restriction put into place. So keep in mind, it's really a program we want to use only when we need to. The easiest way for people to park is without signage, so that people can just come and go. But we do appreciate there's different areas of the city that are growing at different rates and parking congestion can develop. So definitely, if that is the case in your area, you can proceed with inquiring about setting up for residential parking restrictions.
That's amazing, sir. And what I've seen, that people have a lot of misconceptions about parking permits also, like if that there will be a reserved space, or there will be no, like the people cannot, any other person cannot be parking in front of their houses. But what I believe it is, this system is a remarkable system where at least people have a privacy, at least for that area, right? And they can, if I'm not wrong, they can choose the signages also, right, sir?
Yeah, there may be some opportunity to input on signage, but the data process will inform it more than it has in the past. In the past, people could choose for their block which signage they want.
Right.
Where now we'll use the data to really indicate what signage would be best.
Okay.
But they'll still have a choice through the petition process whether they want to proceed or not with the signage.
Because few people I was talking to, going in that area and talking to those guys, they had this notion that if they, like, they were able to choose the sign, and they would like to change the sign to no permit required on weekends, or no permit required after 5 o'clock, because then the main congestion starts, or rather people go away. There are a couple of LRT stations right in the middle, so people just come and park in front of those houses. So they wanted that parking system to be implemented so that nobody else could park, right, who is outside the area. It gives them a privacy, but it comes with some good things and bad things, right, sir?
Yeah, I think definitely there's flexibility in terms of hours for the signage and things like that. We definitely recognize that sometimes those parking problems are only through part of the day, and the street doesn't need signage other parts of the day. It definitely comes with some pros and cons. I mean, it's more challenging for your visitors and other people. Perhaps you have a contractor doing business or something at your home. They need to use the visitor permit process if they're coming to do that. Definitely, we want to prioritize access to the streets for the residents, but we're not using the residential parking program just to keep the street empty and keep people who don't live in the area away. It's really just to give you that priority access for you and your vehicles, but then allow other people to use the remaining space who are visiting your area.
For sure, sir. The very basic question which comes in everybody's mind, sir, that why parking is so expensive in Calgary compared to other cities. And then we come to the parking permits.
Yeah, no, I can definitely speak to that. I think, it's no secret that our monthly downtown parking has been expensive, and there's been many studies and rankings over the years on the price of that parking. It has come down during the pandemic, so
Right,
it's
sir.
not as high as it has been in the past. But I think what people don't realize is there's a lot of inexpensive parking available, or free parking, when you want to visit at other times of day. So we don't charge for street parking after 6 p.m. in the evenings anywhere in Calgary. And Sundays parking is free all day as well, and people are able to stay in most locations, longer than 2 hours. And then the daily parking rate is not that expensive in different locations. A couple dollars per hour, depending where you are in the city where there's paid parking. The goal is really just to have that space turnover,
Right.
so that there's always a space for you if you choose to come use the parking, and that's really what our policies set the price to achieve that goal.
Great, sir. Now the question comes, why parking permits are not free? Because I've also studied the other cities. I think Toronto is Ontario, they charge. BC, they charge. I don't know why we are, as Albertans, always think that it should come to us free because we pay taxes. But I think this has nothing to do with the taxes, right, sir?
Yeah, you know what? My answer to that question would really be the taxes really fund the actual physical street space. What the permit costs are really covering is the management of the permit system. So once you move to a permit system, you need that enforcement and issuing of permits. And that's really where the fees come in, is to support those costs. Calgary and Edmonton, to my knowledge, are the only two major cities in Canada that haven't charged for this in the past. So moving towards a fee-based system puts us on par with other cities in Canada.
And if I'm not wrong, sir, the price structure which you guys are coming up with, I think it is not as expensive as compared to other provinces.
That's correct. So the council will consider the fees for the residential parking program this November as part of their budget discussions. But we're proposing a fee of $15 per year for a regular permit that a single-family home or other ground-oriented dwelling might have. It's just over $50 a year for the select permit. But the market permit will be comparable to off-street prices, so people in large buildings that are considering purchasing those permits, the proposed fees are between $75 a month in suburban locations and $150 a month in the center city. So it will vary by location, and ultimately council will decide on those fees in November.
अमेजिंग। आप देख रहे हैं प्रोग्राम कैलगरी फोकस ऑन पंजाबी नेशनल टेलीविज़न पर। हमारे साथ आज जुड़े हैं मिस्टर क्रिस, जो कि इंटरिम जीएम हैं कैलगरी पार्किंग अथॉरिटी के सिटी ऑफ कैलगरी के अंडर, और वो हमें इन्फॉर्मेशन दे रहे हैं रेजिडेंशियल पार्किंग परमिट प्रोग्राम जो कि अब नया मॉडिफाइड तरीके से आने वाला है कैलगरी के अंदर। आप जुड़े रहें और इन्फॉर्मेशन के लिए थोड़ा इंतज़ार करें, क्योंकि हमारे कमर्शियल मैसेजेस बहुत ज़रूरी हैं। मिलते हैं एक छोटे से ब्रेक के बाद। देखते रहिए प्रोग्राम कैलगरी फोकस ओनली ऑन पंजाबी नेशनल टेलीविज़न पर। वेलकम बैक। आप सब देख रहे हैं हमारा प्रोग्राम कैलगरी फोकस ऑन पंजाबी नेशनल टेलीविज़न पर। एक बार फिर से आप सबका बहुत बहुत स्वागत। हम बात कर रहे हैं मिस्टर क्रिस से, जो कि हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं सिटी ऑफ कैलगरी से, और हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं रेजिडेंशियल पार्किंग परमिट्स की। हमारे नॉर्थ ईस्ट एरिया में सैडल रिज और मार्टिनडेल एक ऐसा एरिया है जहाँ पे ये रेजिडेंशियल पार्किंग परमिट्स यूज़ किए जाते हैं। तो जिस तरह से हमारा नॉर्थ ईस्ट ग्रो हो रहा है, there will be a lot of areas who will be going for these permits. I'm very sure, because the parking is becoming a little bit problem in the growing areas of this part of the city. Mr. Chris, as you said, this fee which is charged is basically more for running the program, right? It's nothing to do with taxes for the city one is paying or anything else, because people have a very big misconception that I am paying a lot of property tax, so the space in front of my house is my property. But I don't think so, because that is a city road, right? And anybody without any problems, like if that person is parked legally, can park for as long as they want, right, sir?
Yeah, people, as long as they're following the signage on the street ultimately is public parking that's available to everyone. So, they completely appreciate, as a homeowner, you want to be able to park close to your home, and that's what many of these programs, like the residential parking program, help facilitate, but it doesn't guarantee that it's your spot. the parking operations are self-supported through the fees and parking payments that people provide for parking in Calgary.
Absolutely, sir. The main question comes in our mind is, sir, that how the enforcement is done. Like how people will come to know that this vehicle, say for example, now the people in Skyview, say they want to, in a certain area, they want to get this program in their area, and they come to the city and ask for a petition. Now they get everything as between the city and that area, residents of that area. But now the question comes, how will somebody know that this car has a permit or not? So how the enforcement will be done?
Yeah, those are very good questions. So because the program is virtual, all the information on who is permitted to park there is input into the Park Plus system. And then we use our photo enforcement vehicles that conduct that license plate recognition. So they'll drive through the area on a regular basis and identify all the vehicles that are there. And they'll correlate that information with our database that indicates who's allowed to park there or which visitors have been entered to park there at that time. And then anybody who has not been identified as having a permit or a legitimate visitor would be issued a ticket. One thing that's always good to keep in mind, because we use the virtual system, people will receive a ticket in the mail a few days later once it's been processed. So you won't see a ticket on somebody's vehicle when this happens. So you may think enforcement's not occurred, but it likely has when the vehicle drove through the area.
Definitely, sir. People usually have this misconception also that, as we were saying, that any space in front of the house is my property, but also nobody else can park over there. A small example I give you: people get a sign of if they are not accessible, like they have a placard which shows that only wheelchair is allowed. So if somebody else parks over there who has a placard, they always have a problem. So I just wanted to clarify over here, since you are here, that in case they go and choose this residential parking permit program, right, and they say for Skyview, I think you named that area, say S. So anybody living in that area S can park in front of anybody's house, or it will be just reserved for that particular house only?
Yeah, what will happen is there are many different lettered parking zones in Calgary, and the permit's only valid for one, and it's typically only valid within 150 meters of the home as well. So the intention isn't that if you have a permit for a particular zone, that then you can go to the other end of the zone perhaps and park there in front of other people's homes. But even with the permit system, it's always good to remember it doesn't make the parking exclusively yours. Your neighbors can use the parking, their visitors may be using that parking as well. But it just gives you a better level of access to the parking than somebody who's not from the area.
These parking permits, you said, sir, they are chargeable. Once this parking permit starts, or people who are using right now, they can only pay online, or there'll be any other place they can go in person, like City Hall or any other CPA office, and pay over there?
If people would like to pay for the residential permit or anything related to the parking authority in person, they can always visit our impound lot location at 400 39th Avenue Southeast.
And pay over there, sir.
That's correct.
But City Hall doesn't take these payments, right?
City Hall does take payments for parking tickets. I don't know on residential parking.
Okay, no worries, sir. But I think when this parking system comes up, there will be this information will be given to the people, right?
That's correct. Yeah, through your application process, you'll have the information on all the avenues to pay for the permit that you're choosing.
That's amazing, sir. And this information is very much appreciated, because again, when the areas which are already using this permit system, now they at least will have an idea that the changes are coming. And before, they could buy more permits because only 2 were free, and then 3rd, 4th, 5th they could buy. Now it will be only 3 permits.
Right.
But don't you think somewhere it's going to create a problem for the people? They have 4 or 5 cars in a family, because over here the car is necessity, sir. It's not a luxury.
Yeah.
So if there are 5 people living in a house, husband, wife, and 3 kids, they all have their own cars. And for example, if they have a detached garage and don't have a driveway, how things will work for them, sir?
Yeah, I think what people who have many vehicles that need parking will need to consider is really fully using those detached garages or driveways as well as the permit program. We did find through our research implementing the changes that there are very few homes in Calgary that have more than 3 regular permits. So we do feel that there will not be too many folks that are impacted directly by that permit limit. Most people between their garages and then the on-street permits that they can get, we're able to accommodate their parking needs. So,
and I'm sorry to say this, but what I believe that at least by this, the people will utilize their garages for parking their cars, not doing anything else.
If you want to save money, that's an opportunity, yes.
Absolutely, sir. Because what I see, a lot of people, they make it as a suite and they rent it out, or they make a small workshop over there and cars are parked on the street. I think that's a good way to let them know that, okay, you know, the garages are meant to park their cars, right? And that also helps to put the cars away from the street. The streets are wide open, right, sir? Now, if you go to Saddle Ridge or if you go to these newly built areas, the streets are so congested and the number of cars are parked. It's very difficult to pass 2 vehicles at one time.
Yep.
One vehicle has to go on the side and it's becoming really, really congested, sir. No, thank you so much for all the information you have given us today, sir. Moving further, when these are implemented, I would request you again to come over here and to talk about more problems, what people will be facing, so that we can help them out in a different way by giving out the information from our media outlet. Can you please let us know, in case people want to connect with you and with CPA, what are the phone numbers or emails or websites they can go to, sir?
Yeah, please visit our website, www.calgaryparking.com. There's a wealth of information on the website. And if you do have questions in particular about parking permits or the residential permit program, you can phone our contact center, 403-537-7000. And also there's information on the parking permit program on the city's website, calgary.ca. Just search parking and you should be able to find that information.
That's amazing, sir. Mr. Chris, thank you so much for all your valuable time today. And before we end today's program, any suggestions or any message for the people of Calgary?
I do have one. If you receive a text from somebody claiming to be the Calgary Parking Authority asking for payment for a permit, that is not the Calgary Parking Authority. We will not contact you that way. Again, if you have any questions, if you get a message like that, please phone our contact center, 403-537-7000, and they'll be able to help you.
That's amazing, sir. तो जैसे अभी मिस्टर कृष्ण ने बताया कि एक टेक्स्ट मैसेज बहुत लोगों के पास पहुंच रहा है, वो स्कैम है। प्लीज़ उसको आप बिल्कुल टच ना करें और उसको डिलीट करें, उसमें कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन ना डालें, क्योंकि कैलगरी पार्किंग अथॉरिटी कभी भी आपको टेक्स्ट के ज़रिए कांटेक्ट नहीं करेगी, वो आपको ईमेल भेजेगी या मेल भेजेगी। तो प्लीज़ आप इस टेक्स्ट के पीछे ना जाएं, और अगर कोई और इन्फॉर्मेशन चाहिए तो 403-537-7000 पे आप उनसे बात करें। मिस्टर क्रिस, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर योर टाइम एंड वी विल सी यू सून अगेन, सर।
थैंक यू फॉर हैविंग मी।
थैंक यू, सर। तो हर टॉक शो ख़त्म करने से पहले मैं यही कहूँगा कि हर टॉक शो का मतलब सिर्फ ब्रेकिंग न्यूज़ नहीं, हंगामा नहीं, बहस नहीं, तमाशा नहीं। ये टॉक शो है आपकी आवाज़ का, आपके मुद्दे का, आपके जज्बात के साथ साथ आपके भरोसे का, क्योंकि आपका भरोसा हमारी जिम्मेदारी है, उम्मीद आपकी कोशिश हमारी है। थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग कैलगरी फोकस ओनली ऑन पंजाबी नेशनल टेलीविजन पर। मिलते हैं अगले हफ्ते एक नए गेस्ट के साथ और इन्फॉर्मेशन के साथ। थैंक यू।